for protests and demonstrations and other ways of exercising your First Amendment rights on the Capitol Mall. Once we do that, then I'll have Leo talk to you a little bit about how this building works during the legislative session. There's a lot of things going on at any one time, and even while we're standing here, even though you don't see anybody down there on the House floor or down in the basement in the committee rooms, there's still a lot going on in this building almost around the clock. And so Leo will introduce you to some of the way that internal politics and lobbying goes on in this building. And then we'll get into the nitty-gritty of the state's new rules that limit your ability to protest in this building to some extent. And the important point of that will be to show you that you still can do almost anything that you need to do to protest in this building. You just have to be mindful of those rules. So where are some places you can be, and how can you protest around here? Well, everybody knows probably the most prominent part of this building and the kind of thing that we think of when we think of protest, which is the Capitol steps. And that's the Capitol steps right there. You can see that they're pretty big. You can fit a whole bunch of people on there. And that means that protests on the Capitol steps can be as small as 3 people, but they can be big, large affairs as well that use both banners and balloons, and lots of people can show up. There can also be more solemn demonstrations on the steps using podiums and public address systems. And there can be, the steps are a particularly good way to attract media attention, because regardless of what your cause is, when you're out on the steps, people can see it from people going down Bannock Street. People can see it from the 2 corners of 8th Street and 6th Street, which are the 2 sides of this, the streets that go all along the east and west side of the Capitol, the 2 blocks that the Capitol sit on. And so often it's a way to attract people to find out what's going on. And there's not just the main steps, which are on the south side of the building over here. There's also steps on both sides, the east and the west side of this building. And so this is, I think that is the west side of the building, but it doesn't really matter. That's one of the side stairways. And you can see that there have been rallies and demonstrations on the side steps as well. When we talk about the rules, we'll talk about how that's iffy now, whether you can use those, but they have been used in the past, and that's an example. There's also lawns, and we're still talking about just this, the 2 blocks that the Capitol, the State House itself sits on. There's lawns, like this is the east lawn of the building. You can see this is a demonstration going on and a rally and some speakers on the east steps, and then people gathered both under tents and also in the weather out there on the lawn. That's another view of that same demonstration. People also march around this building and to this building. This is one march that is going around the here on Jefferson Street. That's that view, and that march went around the building. Here's another march that was going around the Capitol building. And so that is what you have available to you near the State House. So we've been looking at sites here. We got the main steps here, the side steps, and those lawns, all those big green, public green spaces. But all this area where you see in green and with the buildings outlined in red, all of that is the Capitol Mall. And there's some key buildings that are in here. So we've got the State House, sort of the centerpiece of all of this. Over here, we have a building that's not being used right now. It's being built slowly, renovated into what may become part of the University of Idaho. But that used to be the old Ada County Courthouse before it moved over there by Winco on Front Street. And that area also has a lawn, as well as a monument to Idahoan service members who have died in the global war on terrorism there. So you have a lawn, and you also have a monument there.